Hi, it's Diana, here to explore, think about, question, enjoy the intersection between food and literature. Today, we are looking at the last part 3 of 1984, and its intersection with gin. If you like these videos, please like, subscribe, share, or comment. I really love to hear what you think about this whole oily gin thing going on in 1984. So I have said, and it's still true, that dystopian literature is not my favorite. I've read 1984 several times. It is not my favorite. I really tried to put off getting to section 3 because section 3 is the part with all the torture and the brainwashing and the betrayal and this stripping away of self and individuality and just all the ickiness. And I, don't really enjoy that. But what I did realize, what I realized, is that both Winston and I came to 1984 very differently, but with an overriding question. So Winston's overriding question is the present that has the party and has Big Brother, is it really better than the past as the party claims it is? That's what Winston wants to know. What I want to know is what role does gin play in 1984? And my specific question at the beginning was, why is this gin oily? Doesn't sound appealing, still doesn't sound appealing. So we're both going on this journey of discovery through this work of Orwell's. So I'm thinking of Winston. And it's interesting because he knows where he's going to end up at the beginning of the book. It's inevitable. And there he is. There he is in the Ministry of Love being tortured, and he assumes eventually being assassinated. Or not assassinated. Executed. Difference. Executed. He doesn't think it's going to be, when he's not expecting it, it's going to be a public show. And there he is. Oh, but he does it anyway. I really need to know this. I can't let it go. So what happens and he doesn't let it go. He doesn't. Okay, that's it. I'm just thinking, anyway. Several things happen in the Ministry of Love that are important. And I'm going to go to the memory question. So of course, it's O'Brien. He kind of knew that too. O'Brien's the main brainwashing dude. And here's what O'Brien says. This is in my page 248 of my copy. This is what my copy looks like. And he asks Winston, where does the past exist, if at all? And Winston says, in records, it's written down. O'Brien, in records and? Winston, in the mind, in human memories. That's where the past exists. That's exactly what Winston was grappling with, the past and the memory of it, and trying to remember his memories with, and asking the prole. Okay, here we go. O'Brien, in memory, very well then. We, the party, control all records, and we control all memories. Then we control the past, do we not? And Winston asks, but how do you stop people remembering things? And O'Brien goes on to basically tell Winston, it's your fault. It's your fault you're here. You have false memories. You're defective. You're insane. And we're fixing you. You're welcome. And he brainwashes him and tortures him so much until Winston, when he's out and it's all done, he does have a memory of his childhood and he calls it a false memory. So it absolutely worked. So Winston's question, which the answer is a resounding yes. Winston's question, is the past better than the present? or is the present really better than the past? The answer then is it's like, you don't bother asking. Why ask? Why would you ask? Of course, the party says this is the best. It's it becomes a non-question. Kind of like Winston becomes a non-person. And at the very end, and you know it works. He has a memory. He calls it false. He's not just going, okay, I better call this false. He really calls it false. And then the last line of the whole book is, he loved Big Brother. So it worked. And my question, what does gin have to do with it? What role does it play? Why is it oily? Well, it's in the beginning and he's just getting through his day. It disappears in the middle. And here at the end, at the very end, the last section of part 3, section 6, Winston is sitting in the Chestnut Tree Cafe. That's the cafe that was mentioned at the beginning where Jones, Rutherford, and Aronson sat, the three great betrayers. Well, who knows what they really did, but 3 great betrayers of the party and Big Brother. And they sat there and drank and nobody sat around them. And now Winston is in the same place they are. Oh, until they disappear. So eventually, anyway, don't have to talk about what might happen. There he is in the Chestnut Tree Cafe. Yes, their gin is still flavored with cloves, and he calls it saccharine, and he says that it's horrible. So he's drinking it, and Winston is not just drinking. I gotta put this is a reminder. This is for me to remember. This is my rat friend. Isn't he cute? He's cute. And maybe you're like, no, I hate rats so much, but I think he's cute. So I'm getting to that. So I'm getting to the rat because the rat is important. But gin. Winston drinks the gin so much. He has a teacup and a bottle by his bed. He says it's how he's able to get up in the morning. It's how he's able to go to sleep. And he also calls it the ever-flowing gin. Now, when he's sitting at the Chestnut Tree Cafe, just like Rutherford, Jones, and Aronson, nobody sits around him. Nobody wants to be associated with him. Anyway. And the waiters, as soon as they see his glass is empty, they pour him more gin. So he just keeps drinking. And he calls it oily. He says it's horrible. He thinks he says it gets worse with every drink. So he's gulping it down, and every time it's worse. And he says the oily scent of it makes him think of, and he didn't say the word rats, but that's what it is, because it'd be so cute though. In part 2, we see a rat come out of the wall and Winston freaks out, and that's very important because it is the ultimate vehicle of torture. The rat. Okay, I'm gonna put my little rat over here now. The party, or O'Brien, takes what a person most fears and makes that fear come true. And that is like the last thing he's holding on to, that he hasn't betrayed Julia. Of course he tells them, I didn't betray Julia. Okay. Why, Winston? Why did you say that? And they stick a box with, there's a rat, a hungry rat. They're going to lift the thing. Winston can't get this box off his head, and the rat is going to come and eat his face while he's alive, and he can't do anything. I mean, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. So that's not the point. The point is that the gin in Winston's head, the gin smells like the rats. He links them together. What is up with you, Winston? Stop drinking the gin. So I still haven't answered my question. I just have all this information. What does the gin have to do? What role does it play in 1984? So here's what I learned about gin, and I mentioned it before. One, it was made popular by England. England made gin popular. And Winston lives in England. So I think this is an important part because it's part of the culture possibly. And so gin is brought in as the drink. And I tried to link it with James Bond because James Bond drinks martinis, and I looked, and he drinks, because you can have a vodka or a gin martini, and it's almost equal. He drinks them both in the books. And James Bond is cool. He's unruffled. He's almost untouchable at the beginning. he's suave and sophisticated, and he drinks a gin martini. But unfortunately, James Bond, the first book, was published after 1984. So the connection is only in my head. Because I was thinking, oh, maybe Winston is the anti-James Bond. But it doesn't work. It works in my head, but it doesn't work. Okay. Also, Winston's experience with gin is so different than mine. My experience with gin is that it's light, and it smells, if it smells anything, it smells like botanicals, like plants. And it's versatile. It can be made into lovely drinks. And be a joy. It's a joy. Not at all oily. Even if it was oily, because I thought of all those, these possibles, the reason the botanicals do it, the way the botanicals are put into the distillation process, that some of gin is kept in wood barrel, all these possibilities of what can make gin oily. Even if any of those are true, that gin is oil, it's not unpleasant in the reality. So I'm holding on to my experience. I'm going to keep my experience with gin, and I'm not going to go with Winston's oily saccharin clove rat gin. That's disgusting. But there it is. So taking something that is part of the culture, taking something that is enjoyable, and making it so disgusting, and not just disgusting, but Winston can't stop it. He can't stop consuming it. Just like he can't stop consuming what the party shoves down his throat. That's what I'm going with. And it can't be enjoyable, because nothing is enjoyable. So take everything that's enjoyable, and that's what Orwell does, right? Yeah. Orwell does that. He makes families awful. He makes relationships awful. He makes recreation awful. He makes everything is awful. So why would the gin be any different? That's what I'm going with. That's my own thoughts, my own experiences, combining reading 1984 and having a little bit of gin myself and putting them together, and I get to have my own experience and my own memory, and that makes me so happy. Okay, I can't believe that I made it through 1984. I hate to keep sounding so negative about the book, but sometimes when reading literature isn't, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's true. It's not always pleasant. It doesn't, okay, that's another question for another time. Maybe that's something to explore. They don't have anything to do with food. Okay, all right. You know what? There is something happy at the end of 1984, and that's I don't live in it. I don't live in it. And I want to keep it that way. Okay, that's it. Next time, I am pretty sure I'm going to pick a much happier book. Something, I'm thinking picture book. Go from 1984 to picture book. That sounds beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me in this thought journey with gin in 1984. And like I said, if you have any ideas or thoughts of your own or experiences, comment. And if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe and share. Thank y'all so much. See you later.